Let me start by thanking the President, Muhammad Buhari, for this vote of confidence on the media. I think my appointment is a vote of confidence on what the media can do, and I hold this very sacredly on your behalf. I say this because in my 30 years in the media, as a reporter, as an editor, as media manager, public relations manager, press secretary, we are used to building orders, but hardly do we get up there. And the last outing I made when one of us from NTA was retiring, that appeared to take the center stage of how the knowledge, capacity, and diverse experience we get doing this job, how we'll be able to be given the space to show that we can do it. So I'm grateful to the President for this opportunity, and on behalf of the media industry where I grew up from, where I was brought up and where I was bred, I think this appointment is one that all of us should hold sacredly. And this was exactly coming after another media professional also headed our agency. On that note, I'm grateful to the President, and will bring in everything in me to ensure that our profession holds this sacred position without blemish. I'm therefore delighted to welcome you. I have a written speech, but I'll talk through to make our session interactive. Since I was appointed, I have engaged in extensive consultation with government at all levels. The companies, I had a meeting with the companies, had a meeting with the civil society, had several meetings with the NEITI globally on the way forward. And our meeting today is in line with that consultation, to be able to explain, share with you the key priorities of NEITI going forward, and equally to seek your views. Before I begin, let me pay tribute to our colleague, the former Executive Secretary of NEITI, Waziri Adio, whom I took over from on the 19th of February. I'd like to publicly acknowledge that he did his best for our organization, made valuable contributions, and guaranteed and ensured that transition was very smooth. So on his behalf, on your behalf, on behalf of our agency, I wish Waziri Adio and his family well in his future endeavors. I've assured him and assured everyone that attended very different fora that I've met, that my job is continuity and consolidation. To continue with whatever we have been able to achieve, consolidate on those achievements, and on the way, I have a lot of initiatives, creativity and experience to also bring to bear, to expand the frontiers of those achievements. And this is where we are heading to. I've just come to share with you some of the key areas that I think we must be focusing on in the next couple of years, in the 5 years that I will have the opportunity to lead NEITI. One of those areas is on how we can link NEITI reports to impact, strengthening the powers that we have in the discharge of our functions, expanding our powers under the law, and strengthening the law to give us those powers in a larger scale. This is an area that I think a huge gap exists, and NEITI will be focusing on those areas in the next couple of years. It's time for us to revisit the scope, the depth and dimension of the reports that we produce. I do not need to begin to take you through the work we do. As an agency assigned to enthrone transparency and accountability in the oil and gas industry, our primary function is to interrogate and be able to investigate revenue flows from the industry. How much of this money have companies paid? How much did government receive? Did government receive what it ought to receive? Did the companies pay what they ought to pay? And where did we go wrong? Are there variances between what was paid and what was received? And what did we use the money for? In the course of this, is a huge task. NEITI reconciles these revenues from time to time, interrogate the oil and gas companies, as well as government agencies that either warehouse, manage, or take custody of the money. So the NEITI management will be evolving policies and strategies that will ensure that recommendations in our reports are followed through, and recoverable revenues made and ensured they are remitted to government coffers. For instance, up to 2018, our report shows that over 69.5 billion naira and $5.31 billion are still outstanding. We need to identify the agencies involved as contained in our report, follow through and ensure that these revenues, potential revenues to government, are recovered. And most of this money are in terms of outstandings from remittances to NDDC, VAT, CIT, withholding tax, oil and gas levies, including levies on gas flaring. We are isolating issues that concern NNPC directly, because I must publicly declare that our approach with NNPC changed dramatically following a new approach by that organization to issues of transparency and accountability. When the new team in NNPC came, you may have observed that we hardly hear NEITI interrogating NNPC on the pages of newspapers or fighting, because the organization submitted itself totally to dialogue, constructive engagement on the high table, on a round table, and that led to the establishment of a joint committee between the NNPC and NEITI. And NNPC raised a high-powered delegation to that committee, 35-member committee, which is almost half or almost the size of NEITI staff, to show how important the importance they attached to that team. I was part of those who coordinated that team when Waziri Adio was executive secretary. So when we are saying we are doing recoveries, we are isolating issues that have been covered by that engagement. The NNPC issues have been resolved under that joint committee. And I make this clarification very important, because we had a committee and the NNPC offered to say, what are those issues that you are worried about? And we sat down and identified them. Many of those issues have been implemented. Some are in the course of being implemented, and some are still outstanding. But for purposes of the engagement, I do not go to prejudice what those decisions. That's when I said we are continuing and consolidating. It is one of those issues. Our engagement with NNPC on that joint committee to ensure that all the issues are fully trashed out using that constructive engagement we have with the NNPC are not subject of this discussion. But we're saying outside those issues, there are still other issues that do not concern NNPC directly. And those issues are the issues we have isolated and we're looking at about 69.5 billion, which we need to trace the agencies that are involved. No, the covered entities that are involved. Covered entities in this case is not stolen. It's just at our report highlighted them. They are not money stolen. They are monies that we think from our own computation should be in the coffers of government. We will be engaging those agencies, we'll be engaging those companies and covered entities to present these issues, and after constructive discussions, whatever may be the outcome, we think these are issues that are worth looking into. It's not an investigation. Our reports have said we ought to have this money, and the companies may disagree with us, or the agencies may agree with us, but we need to look at those issues again. For us, there are potential recoverable revenues we will need to look at. This will form part of our efforts to link our reports to impact, because at this time when government is battling with funds to be able to deal with complex issues of national development, NEITI, under my watch, will be very, very active in ensuring that no kobo that is supposed to accrue to government coffers will be left unrecovered. We will pay attention, very great attention, to the mining sector. The mining sector over the years appear very dormant. NEITI has been active in the oil and gas sector and partly also in the solid mineral sector. But right now, we'll be shifting greater attention to the mining sector. The first intervention we made in the mining sector, only 8.19 billion was remitted. But as we continued, we noticed that the increase in revenue generation from the mining sector was fast growing. And that's why it has invited us much more interest to focus more on the development of the mining sector to lessen the whole pressure and dependence on oil. By 2018, the mining sector contributed 67 billion naira as our 2018 report, representing about 0.18% to our country's GDP. This is maximally very low. But if you check the difference between 8.19 that was contributed when we started, rising to 67 billion, one will agree that this is a sector that we can no longer ignore, especially at this time when energy transition is putting a lot of pressure on our country's dependence on oil. I've spoken about strengthening the powers and functions of our law. When NEITI Act was enacted in 2007, the focus at that time was on oil and gas. Today, that's no longer the case. There's a lot of focus right now on other emerging issues. The NEITI that we're implementing in Nigeria has grown very far and wide. We need to look at our law again. We'll be working with government, civil society, the media, companies, and the National Assembly to look at our laws, position our laws and strengthen our laws to ensure that our laws will be in a position to respond to the broadening space of the NEITI. NEITI has moved from not just oil and gas to mining to agriculture, agriculture to environment to gender, and is also looking at beneficial ownership, contract transparency, mainstreaming, commodity trading. How are our oil or gas or even the mining products, how are they traded? Those are the issues that our laws needs to now respond adequately. And perhaps, and more importantly, the passage of the PIB will change the landscape of the oil and gas and mining industry. So we think that our law should also move as fast as possible to be able to meet up to these demands. Every attention will be focusing on this is to ensure that NEITI does not just produce reports. We produce reports that will lead to impact in the reforms that are going on in the oil, gas, and mining industry. NEITI has followed with keen interest the current debate on the petroleum industry bill. We are very encouraged that the PIB was introduced as an executive bill, because when the other foreign efforts were being made by the National Assembly, our concern was there was need for this bill to go to National Assembly with executive powers, but that has been achieved. We are very encouraged by the legislative action currently going on in the National Assembly on the bill, and we are hoping that for the first time since after over 18 years that bill will become law. NEITI's job now is to mobilize the multi-stakeholders in the industry to fast-track that process. This will involve a lot of active advocacy, working with the media, the civil society, relevant committees in the National Assembly, the governments and companies, to ensure that that bill becomes law latest before the end of the second quarter of this year, as we are hearing from the National Assembly. When I had meetings with the companies, as fast-tracked by the OPTS, the Oil Producing Trade Section of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce, and the meetings I had with the civil society, these issues dominated discussions. And I'm not very surprised, because the PIB has become a major distraction in the oil and gas industry, since with Nigeria mentioned that we were introducing a law, and the law, everybody was waiting. For the fact that you said you were going to change the law, investment were held, and we have done a lot of interventions in that area, including producing facts that except you make final decision and pass this law, investment into the industry will continue to dwindle. The facts that came out of our meeting with the companies produced a data that 75 billion that flew into investments in the industry in the sub-Saharan Africa, only 3 billion came to Nigeria. Because those investors will continue to wait so long as we continue to delay the passage of the PIB. NEITI's new role in the next future will be to ensure that delays in the passage of that bill will be avoided. We want to see the PIB passed into law, and a lot will change in the oil, gas, and mining industry. In the same vein, there is a solid mineral roadmap that was produced. NEITI worked with the Ministry of Mines and Steel Development to produce that document. It's our duty right now to liaise with all the agencies in the Ministry of Mines and Steel Development to find out where we are, what has gone, what has not been done, to ensure that that roadmap is implemented. We are aware of ministerial committees have been set up, but we do not really know where we are on that. And I'll be meeting with the Ministry of Mines and Steel Development, the Honorable Ministers in the ministry, and the leaders of the agencies to see how we can work together to push that process forward. Now, the scope of our stakeholders' engagement has shrunk considerably, has narrowed. And in the last 1 year, it became even worse following the outbreak of coronavirus and the constant consequences this brought to bear on social interaction. We'll be working very closely with the media, the civil society, to broaden the base of NEITI stakeholders' engagement. We need a strong media connection to our work. Media interaction regular, and civil society advocacy as often as possible. Those are the areas that we can get the kind of advocacy and strength that will require to push a lot of these issues before the public and bring this to public domain. And when we mean stakeholders, we're not limiting to the media and the civil society. NEITI will be liaising very closely to share very informed intelligence with the EFCC, with the ICPC, and Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit, NFIU. Those are our allies to ensure that our reports make meaning in bringing enough impact, sanctions for bad behavior, and incentives for good conduct in the whole transaction in the extractive industry. So broadening the base of our engagement will include those 21 anti-corruption agencies under the Ministerial Tax Team, the IMTT, that we're working with. We will be strengthening our relationship with them. I've made a request to meet with the chairman of EFCC, and I do hope in the next couple of days that meeting will happen. Those are kind of engagements that we'll be having to ensure that we have a coordinated approach to make sure that the anti-corruption fight in the extractive industry gets a bite. When you follow the debate globally, you will see that there is a very strong debate on energy transition, that is transiting from use of oil to use of energy, nuclear energy. Climate change and all other issues are associated with this energy transition will dominate some of our issues, some of our engagements in the nearest future. Energy transition in the developed world has become a very important issue of national discourse. But right now in Nigeria, we are not yet thinking that this is real. NEITI would like to lead that debate, and we will be working with the media, the civil society, and companies to bring this to national attention. Aligning with the EITI International Secretariat has also offered to give us all the required technical support. I think the other issue I just need to mention is on the issue of raising the required manpower that we need to engage with you and to do this work, even at the larger extractive industry. One of those will be to ensure that we have a very, very versatile, trained manpower within the NEITI space. And the NEITI alone, working alone, cannot also make the impact that we seek to put to the front burner. We will be working exactly with the civil society and the media. I keep emphasizing the civil society and the media because those are, in quote, the military arm of the work we've done. I will be very interested to get responses. I'll be very interested to get responses from the media as an organized group on how we can provide all the institutional support and network to enhance training opportunities and capacities within these next couple of years. Because in the last 10 years I headed communication, we were able to raise very professional, competent media professionals that understand the issues in the extractive sector. But unfortunately, somehow, unfortunately in the sense that some of them left to other duties rather than the media with that experience. Fortunately, in the sense that some were either elevated or took us more lucrative jobs outside that training. So we have a responsibility right now to raise new generation of media reporters within that space that can understand how the EITI framework works, the policies and programs behind the EITI, our methods and processes and benefits to our society. Like I said, I think this is much more interactive. But the second leg of our job is to listen to you, to be able to also seek your advice on how we can make a difference I'm using the word we because I said I represent the media in this job and I need us to work together. And when we do work together and produce that kind of impact, the opportunities will be much wider and better for other media professionals like me to rise up to the level of heading a federal agency. I have no doubt in my mind I'm prepared for the job, very prepared, and I could have been more prepared than ever before. But I need this kind of support and collaboration with friends in the media, the civil society, to be able to get the kind of support and the kind of result and impact we expect. On this note, I would like to thank you for coming, and I would please like to take your questions, advice, or comments. Thank you. I said 69.51 billion naira, not dollar. Are recoverable potential recovery revenues. Yes, because when we flag issues in our report, you understand, those involved may disagree. And I need to make a clarification. It's not, I didn't say government agencies. I said covered entities. Entities covered by our report. Covered entities. So, and I'm saying that you isolate this from issues that we are dealing right now with NNPC, which is another question I need to clarify. NEITI is very strong and is going to be stronger under my watch. But you see, when you are engaging with an agency, a national oil company, that in the past don't listen, you call a meeting, they will come, you send letter, they will reply, and then you have a leadership that came and say, what exactly are the issues? Can we sit down and talk about them? And we are sitting down as we speak, talking around them, and those we are making progress. For instance, NNPC, we have been talking, the NNPC should release its audited financial statement. For 43 years, it never happened. But under this engagement, they have published two, and they are going to publish more. You may not agree with the content of the report, but at least that it is a document for discussion. Because if a report is released and you are not happy with it, you debate it, you argue with it, they will take precautions and know how to address those issues here. But if you don't have any information to engage with them, you have a problem. So that's one. Two, NNPC has now accepted our recommendation to join the global EITI. They are a member of the global EITI. It wasn't there before. And as a global EITI, they are now opening, they have opened up their scope, not just for NEITI, but for 53 member countries of the EITI. And as a supporting company of the EITI, which you have in Petrobras, that's the state oil company in Brazil. They have the Malaysian oil company. There are about 17 of them globally, big oil companies in the world, owned by national governments that are members. NNPC is now at that level. There is a minimum to which they can go in responding to EITI issues. So I remember I was in Paris with Mele Kyari when he was appointed. Whether he knew before coming or he didn't know, I don't know. But he was presenting paper at the EITI conference. So he has followed the EITI trajectory over the years when he was appointed, and he left the conference immediately and came back. And we said, you were there in Paris and you heard how national oil companies are run around the world. Are you going to change? For me, he has not changed. And it will be unfair that you are talking to somebody and he's listening. He's following some of the issues directly, and then you go on and begin to. We have changed our approach to them, except if they change. If they change, we have not gotten to where we should be. There is nothing like compromising with NNPC. In the past, we have fought them in the pages of newspapers openly, and nothing came out of it.
So yeah,
but I'm coming.
That's actually what the question is.
Yes.
You said it yourself. You've been fighting with them on the pages of newspapers. It's been 43 years. The same question over and over and over again.
I don't understand.
For them to be more transparent with their
No, yeah. We are coming there. We are coming there. Wait. We are working. We are working with agents, everybody on the PIB. You understand? What the PIB will do to the oil and gas industry is unimaginable. but people will not believe it. And it's almost there. We're almost there. A lot of things will change. And that is the legal framework we have been asking for. Because before the PIB, the only law you have in the oil and gas industry is the Petroleum Act of 1953. Every other thing is a regulation, guidelines. But now a massive law is coming out. And that law will change a lot, including the behavior and character of the industry, the structure, behavior, and character of the industry. So those are the things. And the PIB, NEITI is part of it. NEITI has been pushing on it, and it has taken almost 80 years. But under this PIB, under this leadership in the NNPC, they accepted, succumbed, and allowed the PIB to be articulated and sent as an executive bill. It's part of NEITI's advocacy, and it's now in the National Assembly. We are told that before the end of June, I'm not sure, I'm not a member of the National Assembly. As I speak, NNPC is holding a retreat with legislators on the gray area. There are contentious areas in that legislation, but a lot of progress has been made. So when you are engaging with even an individual or a group, and there is a change of attitude and pattern, the only thing fair is to give a space for that to continue. You don't go to the same old style. So there's nothing like compromising with NNPC. We are speaking to NNPC, and NNPC under these last 2-3 years are listening. And we have to give them that opportunity. A lot has been opportunity. But Bassi raised an issue I've taken very note of, that we need to unveil what is the content of that joint committee report. That I assure you will be done. But I don't want to preempt the meeting I'm going to have with the GMD NNPC. Since my appointed, I've not met him, and I do not want to begin to imagine what will happen when we meet or what we have not discussed. A number of issues I've taken to him will also shape my attitude on how we relate. And I've made an appointment, and I'm very optimistic in the next couple of days we are going to meet to look at those issues. But I'm meeting you to say, among the people I've not consulted NNPC. But I don't have to wait until I consult them before I have an idea what we have to do. So, but we are going to work together with them. So far, so good, working with them. And if anytime they take us for granted, our attitude will change. But right now, we speak, they listen, we call a meeting, they come, we ask for document, they give, and that joint committee has produced a report which has been approved by the two agencies. But implementation has not been fully completed. Some areas we have agreed, some areas are pending, discussions are going. It will be unfair at this stage to begin to preempt the report, which we have not fully concluded. So there is nothing like compromising with NNPC. And those who think we should be fighting and fighting when the fight has not produced a report, if dialogue and constructive engagement gives us what we're looking for, we'll be fine. They are working on the PIB, not as ever before. They are behind it. They are working on they released their audited financial statement the first time. They have joined the EITI as a supporting group. This is when things were not there before. So these are issues that they are now a member of EITI. And as the pressure is coming from the national EITI, it's also coming from the international. And for you to accept to be a global player in the oil and gas industry and to open your books to the international scrutiny, it's a lot. It's a lot of compromise. So we have no doubt in our mind that a lot is being done under this leadership. And the only thing we can do is to encourage them. Because if you go back to where we are coming from, we are not being fair. So that's the point I needed to make. But I will not want to go into other because I'm yet to speak with the GMD of NNPC. But I'm very confident that our engagement with them, if they continue this way, will be sustained. Anytime they change, it will change. They are not the only ones who can change. So, you also raised the issue of, so when I say the money that we are recovering revenues, the ones that are under that joint committee consideration are not there. So NNPC issues are being handled under the joint committee. Bassi and others have not changed. I will never change. I can only improve. I was a reporter. I was an editor. I was a public relations manager. I've managed the media, the head of Bureau of Public Procurement. I was head of media. I have been head of media in the National Assembly. I've also served as media advisor to ministers. I understand what our issues are. My leadership of NEITI is not going to complicate our problems. If I cannot help, I will not complicate it. I can assure you that there will be a great change. When I was director, I had people I report to. And you must learn how to work under people. It's different from when I'm now in charge. And I don't know how many times I've spoken to you since my appointment. You call, I return the call. That was? That was what? Private. It can't be private because you said whether I'll be picking my calls. I was appointed, I'll be picking calls. I've been discussing, but it's impossible to reply all calls at the same time. As I'm here, people are calling. So when you go, you look at those who are calling for how the work can progress and reply them. But those who are positioning themselves for other things, you wait until those things, or those things. Obas, there will be training because it is in our interest, not even about you. When we are misrepresented, it costs more to correct it, And I said we raised 25 professionals. I can name you. About a few of you. Juliet is here. You are here. Basi is there. Victor is here. Where is the guy from Daily Trust Leadership? We know them. 25 of them, Collins, that can, if they are here, the engagement will be here because they understand the issues. So it was, and they've never misrepresented us. They can call you 10 times just to correct an issue. So, and when you train the media, it's for the benefits of society. It's not about you, but the knowledge you have. And I even went around to appeal to my colleagues who are editors. My contemporaries in the media are either managing directors or editors-in-chief. I told them it does not pay when you raise the capacity of a journalist in a bit. Out of local politics, you just fling the reporter to a non-consequential bit where it doesn't add value because you want to show power. How can you stop this? I talked to a number of them, attended Guild of Editors meeting, and I spoke to a number of them. So if they allow institutional memory to thrive, institutional capacity to thrive, training, retain experience, it will help the industry. You understand? You see people in CNN who can be on one bid for 30 years, and it helps their system. So I am appealing to you people to see my appointment as a very important statement on the capability of the media to manage, not just manage institutions, manage people. So, and this idea of we work in the media 20, 30 years, we retire. All the experience, exposure, they die. And we'll be at home criticizing and criticizing. We have been given an opportunity to show what we can do. Waziri worked with us. I'm not Waziri. I've commended him for the ones he has done very well. And there are gaps that must be filled. But I'm not going to say everything he did was wrong. No. There are areas I personally saw that I could do better. And I have the opportunity to improve on those ones. But the main thing is there must be continuity and there must be consolidation. And in the process, you give me the opportunity to also bring my own initiatives. And I made extensive consultation in the last 1 week on the constitution of the board and have received assurances that the board will soon be constituted. One of the first businesses of the board will be to approve that report. I can't comment on what has happened or did not happen until the report, until when we see our report. And NEITI has no mandate. It's not part of our mandate to talk about prices of petroleum products. There is an agency that is set up, I think PPRA, to deal with pricing of petroleum products. It's not part of our mandate. And we are not on day-to-day running of the industry. Our industry audit, as required by EITI, is after 2 years. We are now procurement process for 2020 is going on. On the basis of our report, we make comments. And the contents of our report are empirical data based on verified information. Beneficial ownership is an omission. It's in my speech. NEITI is committed to beneficial ownership disclosure. NEITI is committed to contract transparency. NEITI is committed to transparency in commodity trading. NEITI is committed, fully committed, to advancing gender equity in extractive industry. We don't want our extractive industry to be dominated by men. The ladies and women that are into that oil and gas must be encouraged to stand firm, to be empowered to do a lot more in the industry. Gender, environment, climate change, energy transition, these are commitments I presented to the international EITI in my maiden meeting. Since my appointment, I've met with the global executive director and head of international secretariat twice. I've met with EITI and we presented Nigeria's commitment to EITI is very strong. And we're very glad we have very strong political support that we're getting at the highest level in our country. Henry, on the OGP, you are very correct. I omitted that, but I just said I simplified the speech. You get a whole lot of my speech maybe immediately after this. I just presented one page as talking points. The OGP is, NEITI is a member of the OGP, and we chair the extractive sector of the OGP. Before my appointment, I was the team lead of the EIT of NEITI in the OGP for over 3 years. I was part of those who designed the National Action Plan of the OGP, NAP1, we call it. I was also part of those who reviewed NAP1 that led to NAP2, National Action Plan on OGP. Just this morning, I came a little bit late and I apologize. I'm sorry I didn't apologize earlier. It's because I was in a Zoom meeting with an international conference in Geneva on open contracting as being implemented under the Open Government Partnership. So, and I made presentations. It was the conference started 10 and ended 11. Transitive from here, immediately after the meeting was responsible for my lateness. So we're very committed to the OGP. And the OGP, as we have it now, is doing very, very much a lot on ease of doing business, on transparency in open contracting, on other areas, including what? Including beneficial ownership. So every plan we're making is based on this very strong optimism. But we will not say, oh, because there is insecurity, we will do nothing at all. People are working. If you go to the mining sites, a lot of work are going on. But you only make sure that you are security conscious in what to do. But we will not give in to terrorism and then abandon our job. I think virtually we have covered everything, except if there is any other thing I've left. But let me use this opportunity once more to reaffirm our commitment to work with you. We will do everything possible to make your relationship with us mutually beneficial in terms of our engagement, to support you with training, to support you with any reasonable way we can ensure that your work will be easier. I don't think it's you are preaching. In fact, you are preaching to the converted. I have an idea of what the issues are. I haven't worked with many of you for the last 10 years.